I stared at my laptop screen, my fingers frozen over the keyboard. The message blinked back at me, sharp and undeniable. Unusual activity detected. Funds transferred. My heart lurched in my chest, and I could almost hear it pounding in the quiet hum of my apartment. The soft sunlight spilling through the blinds felt almost cruel, casting warm lines over my polished desk, as if mocking the chaos my parents had secretly unleashed in my life. I straightened in my chair, feeling the smooth silk of my blouse bunch against my arms, a stark contrast to the icy shock running through me. My coffee sat half-finished, the aroma mingling with the faint scent of my vanilla candle, mundane, domestic, safe. And yet, nothing felt safe anymore. Not my accounts, not my files, not even the people I had trusted the most. I replayed the moment in my mind. The way Mom had smiled a little too brightly when I logged in this morning, Dad hovering near the doorway with that unsettling calm. They had installed tracking software on my computer. Every keystroke, every bank login, every private document, they knew it all. And now, they had started draining my savings, inch by inch, like a slow, deliberate betrayal. A flush of anger rose in me, mingled with disbelief. But beneath it, there was something else, a spark of resolve. I had built this life with my own hands, and no one was going to take it from me. I remember the first time I truly felt the weight of their control. I was 22, freshly graduated, eager to start a career in graphic design. I had dreams bigger than the small town I grew up in, bigger than the polished but suffocating walls of my parents' house. I had saved every dollar from internships and part-time jobs, carefully planning to rent a tiny studio in the city and carve out a life of my own. But my parents, they didn't see ambition. They saw vulnerability. "Why risk it?" my mother had asked, voice soft but laced with condescension. "You have everything here. Let us handle it." My father, arms crossed, nodded, eyes sharp behind his glasses. "We just want what's best for you, sweetheart." The words sounded like care, but their actions, monitoring my accounts, questioning my purchases, insisting on guiding every financial decision, felt suffocating, like invisible chains tightening around my wrists. I tried to argue, my throat thick, my hands trembling over the papers on the dining table. I had every right to my savings, to my choices, to make mistakes and learn from them. But they dismissed me, smiled, patted my shoulder, and made me feel like a naive child. The sting of that dismissal burned in my chest for days. I left the house that evening, my savings folder clutched against my body, and walked down the quiet street, feeling both furious and hopeless. It was on that walk that I met Mrs. Reynolds, the elderly woman who ran the little cafe on the corner. She had always been kind, noticing my frazzled nerves before I could speak. That day, she handed me a small leather-bound notebook. "Write everything," she said gently. "Your ideas, your plans, your dreams. And never let anyone tell you they don't belong to you." I had laughed nervously, unsure if it would make a difference, but her eyes held a quiet certainty that sank deep into my heart. That night, in the dim glow of my bedroom lamp, I opened the notebook and began to write. I wrote about moving out, about saving enough to start my life without interference, about finally trusting myself. With every word, I felt a flicker of courage, tiny, fragile, but undeniable. And for the first time, I promised myself I would not let anyone control my money, my work, or my future ever again. Leaving home was both terrifying and exhilarating. I rented a tiny apartment in the city, walls bare, furniture secondhand, but for the first time, everything was mine, my space, my decisions, my life. I carried the leather notebook everywhere, jotting ideas, budgets, and plans between sips of cheap coffee at my favorite corner cafe. Every entry was a small act of rebellion, a secret claim on the independence I had been denied for so long. I wasn't naive. I knew building a career and protecting my finances wouldn't be easy. The first months were grueling. Freelance work barely paid rent, late nights stretched into early mornings, and self-doubt crept into my thoughts more than I cared to admit. I would sometimes stare at my bank balance, heart sinking, wondering if I had the courage to keep going. But Mrs. Reynolds' words echoed in my mind. Never let anyone tell you your dreams don't belong to you. It was around that time I met Lucas, a seasoned graphic designer who ran a small design firm downtown. He noticed my sketches at a local showcase and asked me to coffee. Over steaming cups of espresso, he listened, really listened, to my ambitions, my ideas for interactive design, my dreams of building a client base that could sustain me. He offered mentorship, not charity, and taught me practical skills, advanced design software, networking, pitching, even basic financial planning. He never once asked about my parents, never judged the shadows they left on my confidence. I worked tirelessly. I experimented with freelance projects, learning to negotiate contracts, manage clients, and balance creativity with business acumen. I made mistakes, sometimes losing clients or undercharging, but each failure felt like a lesson carved into my bones. Slowly, I built momentum. My first big client came through an online pitch I had meticulously prepared. I remember staring at the signed contract in disbelief, hands trembling, thinking, I did this on my own. I kept my success hidden from my family. On social media, I posted modest updates, a cafe photo, a casual selfie, but never anything that hinted at my financial growth. I learned the value of privacy and how to guard my life like a fortress, brick by brick. Every saved dollar, every signed contract, every late-night breakthrough strengthened the wall I was building around myself. By the end of that year, I had not only achieved financial stability, but also mastered the digital tools to protect it. Password managers, encrypted cloud storage, even software that would alert me to unauthorized access became part of my routine. My parents' attempts to monitor or control me had no foothold anymore, though I hadn't told them that yet. That revelation, I knew, would come in its own time. I leaned back in my chair one evening, the glow of my laptop reflecting in my eyes, and allowed myself a small smile. I had survived their betrayal. I had built a life of my own. And soon, very soon, they would see that the girl they tried to control had become someone they could no longer underestimate. The knock on my apartment door startled me. I hadn't expected anyone, especially not them. But when I opened it, there they were, Mom with her nervous smile, Dad standing stiffly behind her, both carrying that faint air of false confidence. They looked as though they had stepped into the same small-town house I had left years ago, unaware that I was no longer the girl who had trembled under their gaze. "Hi, honey," my mother began, her voice faltering as she stepped inside. "We just thought we'd check in." I gestured for them to sit on my cream-colored couch. The apartment was modest but elegant, every surface curated, every corner a reflection of my choices. Expensive prints hung on the walls, gifts from clients and small auctions. My desk in the corner gleamed under soft lighting, multiple monitors humming quietly. On the far wall, a shelf held the leather notebook that had guided me, a reminder of how far I'd come. They took it all in slowly. I could see the flicker of recognition in Dad's eyes, the realization that the small, quiet girl they thought they could control had grown into someone formidable. My mother's fingers twitched nervously on her lap, and I waited. I let them absorb the scene before speaking. "I see you've noticed the changes," I said softly, deliberately. "The financial activity, the monitoring, the transfers." Their faces tightened. "Yes," I continued, leaning against my desk, "I know everything. Every step you took to track me, every attempt to drain my savings, every thought that you could control my life from behind a screen." The silence stretched. My mother's eyes filled with shame, and Dad looked like he might shrink into himself. But I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I had been for years. I was powerful. I was prepared. "I built this life with my own hands," I said, lifting my gaze to meet theirs. "I left, I worked, I learned, I fought. Every client, every investment, every late night, I did it. And I've protected it. I know how to secure my finances. I know how to secure my future." And yes, I added, a subtle, almost ironic smile touching my lips, "I know how to see through tracking software too." They froze, as if their worst fears had suddenly taken a tangible shape. I could see the disbelief settling in, the guilt washing over them. My mother opened her mouth, but no words came. Dad's jaw tightened, and I let the moment hang, heavy with truth. Then I took a slow step toward them. "You taught me one thing," I said softly, almost warmly. "Even in betrayal, I found my strength. Every attempt you made to control me only pushed me to become better, faster, smarter. And now, here I am. The daughter you tried to manipulate is untouchable." I let them sit with that. I let them understand that the balance of power had shifted. The girl they thought they owned was no longer a pawn. I could see the wheels turning in their minds, the recognition of past mistakes, the shock at my accomplishments, the quiet admiration hidden behind layers of guilt. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to demand apology or explanation. I let the room breathe with the truth. I had reclaimed my life. I had reclaimed my money. I had reclaimed myself. And from this moment forward, nothing would ever be the same. The tension in the room was palpable, but for the first time in years, I felt completely in control. I had the upper hand now, not just over my finances, but over the toxic patterns that had shaped my childhood. They had crossed a line, and while I was capable of cutting ties, I wanted something more: accountability.
Change. Growth.
"Listen carefully," I said, my voice steady but firm. "This is what I'm willing to do. I am not here to punish you, but I will not bend to old patterns, and I will not allow manipulation in my life again." My mother's eyes widened, and Dad's lips pressed into a thin line, bracing for conditions. "First," I continued, "you must respect my autonomy. That means no tracking, no interference, no surprises. If you want a relationship with me, it must be on my terms." Their faces fell, the gravity of that simple, non-negotiable rule sinking in. "Second," I said, "you will educate yourselves. You need to understand finances, digital security, and the impact of your actions. Knowledge can erase the past, but it can prevent future harm. I am willing to guide you if you are willing to learn." I watched the flicker of realization cross their faces, finally seeing the consequences of years of blind control. "Third," I said, softer this time, "I want honesty. If you want trust back, you have to practice it. That means admitting mistakes, asking before intervening, and truly listening. Not the kind of listening that nods while thinking of your own agenda, but the kind that hears someone's life." I paused, letting each condition settle. My heart thudded not with anger, but with purpose. "Lastly," I said, "you have to pursue your own goals, separate from me. I want to see you invest in yourselves, grow, and become people who aren't dependent on controlling others. That's how we can heal, not by holding power over me, but by reclaiming your own lives responsibly." I could feel the shift, the subtle trembling of authority leaving their posture, the recognition that the dynamic had changed. It was no longer about who held the money or the power. It was about boundaries, respect, and the hard-earned dignity I had built. And yet, I tempered firmness with compassion. I cared for them, despite everything. My voice softened. "I know this is difficult. Change always is. But if you're willing, I can help you rebuild a relationship, not the one from the past, but a new one. One that is honest, respectful, and meaningful." They looked at me, stunned, grappling with a mix of shame and awe. I could see it, the understanding that the daughter they had underestimated had grown into a woman they could no longer manipulate. The air was charged with possibility, a fragile but promising bridge between past mistakes and future growth. In that moment, I realized that the true power shift wasn't just about finances or control. It was about self-respect, boundaries, and demanding to be treated as an equal in my own life. And for the first time, I felt the exhilarating certainty that nothing could take that away. Weeks passed, and the air between us slowly began to change. They stopped hovering, stopped asking for account updates, stopped trying to manage my life. Instead, I noticed small gestures. Mom asking about my latest design project, genuinely curious, not critical. Dad sending a link to an article on investments, as if trying to understand the world I had built. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, a fragile truce built on respect rather than fear. I spent evenings in my apartment, the soft glow of the monitors reflecting my quiet satisfaction. The leather-bound notebook sat on my desk, worn from years of use, a constant reminder of where I had started. Flipping through its pages, I traced the words of Mrs. Reynolds' advice, seeing the girl I had been and the woman I had become. Every challenge, every sleepless night, every cautious step toward independence had led me here. I allowed myself a rare smile, a deep breath, and even a laugh at the irony. The parents who had tried to track and control me were now learning, hesitantly, how to respect boundaries. And I had the power to witness that growth without losing myself in it. I thought about the life I had fought for. The apartments rented with my own money, the contracts negotiated alone, the security I had created in every account, every file, every corner of my digital world. I had reclaimed more than my savings. I had reclaimed my peace, my dignity, my confidence. The symbolic notebook reminded me that true strength often grows in quiet, unnoticed ways. I had written my own rules, followed my own path, and refused to let betrayal define me. And now, even in the presence of the people who had tried to undermine me, I could move forward with grace. As I looked out at the city's skyline through the tall windows, the sun setting behind the towers, I felt a final, empowering clarity. I was unshakable, independent,
Whole.
and the journey, the pain, the struggle, the resilience, had forged a woman who would never again be anyone's pawn. I whispered softly, almost to myself, almost as if sealing a promise. I am the keeper of my life, the architect of my future, and no one, not even my parents, can take that away.